Good friend of the show, Murray Poole, joins us. Murray, good afternoon. How are you?
Good, Kevin. How y'all doing today?
Fantastic. You look at the football squad and Thomas Brown coming back in to the coaching staff means on the offensive side, at least, you got a lot of former Georgia Bulldogs now coaching the positions that they once played there at the University of Georgia. How big a get do you think Thomas Brown coming in to replace Tony Ball essentially is for Mark Richt?
I think it's a big one, Kevin. First we heard that morning that Lance Taylor, the Stanford assistant, was coming and actually accepted the job, I understand, but then he had second thoughts and backed out. And I think by him doing that, Georgia couldn't have got a better one than Thomas Brown. He was at Wisconsin. He coached at a couple other schools, certainly in Marshall. But getting Thomas Brown, who was one of the most dedicated football players Georgia's ever had, Kevin, I think pound for pound when he was there, he was the strongest man on the team in the weight room. And just comes from good stock. I remember talking to his dad, question and answer, when he came to Georgia, and his dad was just a class guy, from Tucker High School area. You could tell that Thomas had the right upbringing and the kind of kid he was, but by just talking to his parents. I think it's a tremendous, since he's left Georgia, of course, he played at Georgia, 2004 to 2007. He's been an outstanding coach and recruiter, and I think the Wisconsin people really hated to see him leave, Kevin, because they said he was arguably the top recruiter on that staff and related to young guys. And I think some of the young guys, like a running back in North Carolina, is already, maybe thinking twice, seeing their main recruiter and a guy they admire so much has moved to the University of Georgia, kind of puts Georgia in the fight with them.
Murray, certainly you can get good assistant coaches from all over, but is there something a little more meaningful about having an assistant on staff when he's a guy that played there, understands the system, is familiar with the area, et cetera?
That's right, BJ. No doubt about it. I think, and I think he's just kind of like a model coach, kind of like Brian McClendon. Willie McClendon, of course, a Brunswick native, in the State Hall of Fame this coming weekend. And I think that Brian, he's just a class young guy, too, and all Georgia receiver. And now he's getting to go back to where he played as receiver, being the wide receiver coach and the passing game coordinator. And I think it's just going to really work out well. And Thomas Brown coaching what he played in college, and he's, of course, got a great stable of running backs starting, with Sonny Michel and, of course, Nick Chubb, who arguably will be in the race for the Heisman Trophy this year. But I think like you say, Bulldog bred and born and bred and knows the system and everything, knows the recruits in this state, knows the high schools, and I think they've got a tremendous recruiting duo, and Brian McClendon and Thomas Brown now, BJ, and of course Brian McClendon's already once got best young recruiter in the country, assistant coach, won that award already once.
Yeah, Murray, that was going to be my next question. How much of hiring an assistant coach these days has to do with the recruiting angle, and also give us a preview, if you can, of how things might eventually shape up for Georgia's 2016 class.
Yeah, man, I think, like I say, it's vital. You've got to have a coach. That's why I think that, Roquan Smith, really was pulled to UCLA at the start because he had such a great, relationship with that main recruiter out there who went on to the Atlanta Falcons. And I think, these kids really identify with a guy that stays with them for months and months on the recruiting trail. And like I say, I just don't think there's any better young guys recruiting now than Brian McClendon. And now that Thomas Brown has joined the staff, they make those relationships early. And as much that you have some kids, guys, y'all know this, that grew up a Georgia Bulldog, grew up a Georgia Tech Yellow Jacket, grew up a Florida Gator. They just have their mind on, if they're good enough and they turn into that kind of prospect in high school, they have their mindset on going to that school. But others, they develop not so much. Guys from out of the state of Georgia, so many good players that the Bulldogs have landed, develop these relationships with these assistant coaches. And Brian McClendon, like I say, has really pulled in the ball players from out of state that way. And, of course, Mark Richt is a coach that high school players gravitate to just for his the kind of coach he is, the kind of character he's got. But the assistant coach is the one that establishes that relationship, stays with them. I think it's really going to pay off in the future with Thomas Brown joining the Bulldog staff.
Murray Poole, Bulldog Illustrated, joining us here on 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. And Murray, we've had an ongoing debate here on the show about Georgia basketball, and Mark Fox and company drop another one in about a couple of weeks to South Carolina, who's been now near the bottom of the SEC standings. How detrimental was that, and are you maybe more concerned that you hear Mark Fox postgame saying, I just don't like the fight in our team and the heart of our team right now.
Yeah, let me get back to that a second. I related the second part of Matt's question of the 216 class, Georgia football class, is going to be tremendous, led by the rivals, number one guy in the country right now, not just quarterback, but country, and Jacob Eason coming from the state of Washington. He's recruiting well for Georgia. They've got the big lineman from the state coming too, and that 216 class is shaping up, star-wise, maybe even bigger than this, this 2015 class. So it's going to be a tremendous class, and I think you'll see some top receivers coming in now that Brian McClendon has gone to that receiver spot. And, Jacob Eason, the top quarterback in the country, 6'6" guys, he's going to be the tallest quarterback in Georgia history coming in year after next. And he's going to have a lot of Pied Piper with a lot of these good recruits coming in with him, I believe. And, the basketball team, very disappointing last night, Kevin. You lose to Auburn on Saturday. You say, well, you might have had a bad game. You just couldn't stop Auburn's three-point shooting. But last night, get down 21 points, just inexplicable to a South Carolina team. It's down in the conference, has played some good ball, but, Georgia, you would think, would have been ready and come back, bounce back from the Auburn loss, knowing the game. They need to keep their RPI high, and it just didn't happen. They did to their, to their extent. They did come back, make a game of it, and came from that 18-point halftime deficit, tied it up toward the end of the game, but just couldn't pull it out, made some bad plays at the end, let Gamecocks hit a couple of threes, and it's got them in a bad place, guys. I think they dropped from like a number 24 RPI rating to number 40 now, and it keeps tumbling down. And now they go to Alabama Saturday night, and then they got Ole Miss on the road after that. So I'm really thinking out about these last 5 games. They're going to have to go 4-1, and maybe the only loss being to Kentucky to make sure they get off the bubble and stay in the running. But 2 terrible losses, and once again, it brings the heat back on Mark Fox. I think a lot of people were kind of giving a benefit of doubt, doing a good job with this team and so forth. But losses like this, kind of like the football team had losses to teams they shouldn't have, knocks them out of the playoffs. So that's what's happening to Georgia now. They're kind of in a free fall tumble. Can they snap out on the capstone Saturday night? It's going to be interesting to see how this team can bounce back. Obviously, of course, without J.J. Frazier, they just don't have the kid, I think, that control the ball outside and drill those 3-pointers, and he was out last night. But you just can't use injuries because everybody's been banged up this time of year, getting a little tired and weary, leg weary. But, guys, March Madness is just right around the corner, and you've got to put it together if you plan to be there.
Murray, talking about Mark Fox, and again, it seems like a week and a half ago, everybody was lauding him and talking about what a great job he's done. But if Georgia does miss the NCAA tournament, is he coming back next year? Is he on a hotter seat, or could his job be in jeopardy?
I think it will, BJ. He's, I think, this is his 6th year, I believe, 6th year, and certainly I think really with Greg McGarity, after they missed the tournament last year, I think this is one of the requirements to make the NCAA tournament field. So if they don't make it, you may see some changes in Athens. I'm just trying to be frank about it and what I know up front. And, it's going to be tough because they really started out so well this year and it looked like it was going to be Fox's best team. But then these, like I say, 2 inexplicable losses at home to lower SEC bottom feeders, and it puts him right back on that hot seat. And if he doesn't make the tournament, I don't think the NIT is going to be enough. And also, he's got a big contract, and they said he hadn't signed his contract yet. I don't know if that's McGarity telling him to hold back on the contract. Let's see how you finish. Coach Fox thinking he was going to get in the tournament and might, get a salary raise, which I understand is not in the contract right now. So, yeah, I think it's going to be, you'll obviously see some really hot things going on if he doesn't make the tournament this year.
Murray, finally, how important is this SEC tournament potentially going to be for the Dogs? Yeah,
the SEC tournament's going to be big, but I think, like I say, to set the stage to get in, Matt, to the big show, in the March Madness, they're going to have to win at least 3 or 4 of these 5 games left, and maybe play Kentucky well. Somebody said, well, if they go 1-4 and beat Kentucky the first loss of the season, would that be enough? I don't think it would be. I think they can't slip up the Ole Miss and Alabama. They've got to at least get a split there, beat Auburn and Missouri at home, and play Kentucky really well. And then that said, like you said, I think the SEC tournament's going to be big because I think they really would have to win a couple of games in there. And if they can get up to, say 21, 22 wins, I think they still might have a really good chance. Although you're probably looking at a number 9 to 11 seed somewhere because of these bad losses we just talked about.
Murray Poole, Bulldog Illustrated, has been our guest here on 3 and Out. Murray, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you guys. Have a good day.